Hey guys, welcome back to Kampai Sugai podcast. I have two guests with me today, but before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Mahalo Shoots. I never gave them a shout out ever actually, and I've worn this shirt a few times in like different pictures and stuff. So shout outs to Mahalo Shoots, Coach D. Yeah, shout outs to you, buddy. He does. If you guys meet him or anything, he actually runs the Hawaii Entrepreneurs account as well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but Coach D does quite a bit of marketing. So this is one of his brands. So yeah, shout out to you guys. Anyway, today we have two guests. Usually we have one-on-one guests, but today we have two guests, which is pretty cool, and I'm pretty happy because we got some good drinks. We taped it, but I don't know if you guys are probably looking at the can and thinking, I know what this is. All right. we don't have to cover this, but just for consistency, I'm covering it up. But you guys know what this is. All right. That's okay. You can see the M. All right. If you zoomed in, you can see the M. Anyway, I got two guests with me today. I'm very happy because this is going to be an educational episode for myself and hopefully for you. So please give a round of applause for Alika Kane and Sean Culver. Culver or Cover?
Culver. You got
Culver.
it right.
Okay, good.
And thank you. We're happy to be here.
Thank you guys. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. And then, so let's start this off because you guys run the howtocryptohawaii.com page. But yeah, let's start this off with how you guys got into cryptocurrency, first of all. I mean, it's such a, it's crazy. It's been around for quite a while, honestly, but it's still foreign to people, about the whole process, and it's kind of growing. It's evolving as well because there's more cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin. There's Ethereum.
Yes.
I don't know the other ones. I had it and then I kind of forgot it, but there's other ones out there. So
we can dive all into that.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. Yeah, we'll have some fun, but. Yeah, tell us how you guys got into cryptocurrency.
Sure. So I first got into cryptocurrency in early mid 2017 before Bitcoin grew to $20,000 really quickly, but sort of in that time when it was growing more than it ever had before, and people were starting to hear about it for the first time. Really, I think a lot of us have maybe heard about Bitcoin before then in 2017. But we just sort of thought it was offhand, internet money, Silk Road, not really sure what it is, how it works, and who really cares. But 2017 is when a lot of people really first started to hear about it again and really learn about it. And so that's when I first learned about it as well. And I quickly became intrigued by this idea of natively digital money where there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. And so that sort of led me down the rabbit hole that a lot of people go on, where you not just learn more and more about Bitcoin, but you start to wonder, what is money even supposed to be? How does money work? How does money work today? Most of us don't really know how money works today. So over the last 4+ years or so now, it's been a steady journey into learning more about money, more about Bitcoin, more about crypto as a whole, and really being following and learning about this space more and more.
So, Alika, pretty much the same time around as Sean, about 2017, started hearing about it. I think even Netflix had a little documentary called Betting on Bitcoin. So I kind of watched that and I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. So definitely started looking into it and kind of, just what he said, started going down the rabbit holes like, okay, well, what is money really? And kind of, just kind of going along with that. As kind of like a local boy, born and raised here, you kind of, try to keep your ear out, especially for things, that kind of helps, I want to say help grow wealth in a sense, only because, everybody from here can relate, right? We have, high cost of living, price houses that are like, in the millions now. That's the medium range, and even around 2017, it was still kind of high.
So at a studio price.
Yeah, exactly. You get for like $500,000, you get a studio. right? So that's kind of where I started to look into this, this asset is something that, can really help out, locals here. So, and I've been kind of just following along, ever since then. Along the way, met a guy named Sean on the Honolulu Bitcoin Meetup group. He's kind of being modest. He actually wrote a book called The Story of Money. It's really great.
Oh.
I think a lot of locals, I would recommend it to a lot of people because a lot of people really don't, we don't know money that well. And myself, I only started, getting into it, only since 2017. But, once you kind of, learn more and more about it, it kind of really opens up your eyes to everything. So there's actually three of us. There's another guy named Dustin Robertson. He's actually the founder of How to Crypto Hawaii, but he lives on Maui. So yeah.
Wow.
Right. It's funny, and thank you for mentioning the book, Alika. I was probably
I'll
going to name drop
it,
at some point later, but you got it out right away. The Story of Money, the journey from shells and shekels to bills and Bitcoin is on Amazon and anywhere where you can find books. And it's funny because I remember driving to work with my dad sometime in 2016 because we both worked in the same area, and we heard about Bitcoin on the radio, and I remember saying to my dad that this is the most obviously a bubble thing that has ever existed before. How can there just be a new digital money? And now here we are 4 or 5 years later. I have put out a number of pieces of educational content about Bitcoin and money, and we can talk about maybe some of those later.
Yeah, let's get into cryptocurrency because I think a lot of people, especially here in Hawaii, maybe even on the mainland, it's still foreign. So, what is cryptocurrency at its baseline, and what can people get? Just the basics about it.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think one of the things that makes it so hard to understand cryptocurrency is that there's so many different aspects of it. Bitcoin is just money, and Bitcoin is trying to be a form of digital money, but other cryptocurrencies are trying to do other things. What do they want to be? Do they want to be social networks or NFTs or whatever? And for people who are just trying to learn more about the space, it can be really overwhelming to know even where to start or to find good information or to know what questions to ask or where to go. So for cryptocurrency, I think the first place to start is really trying to understand Bitcoin itself. What is Bitcoin? How does it work? And why does it matter? And so Bitcoin really boils down to it is a natively digital money that has a fixed monetary policy. So there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Right now there's about 19 million Bitcoin out there, and every 10 minutes or so new Bitcoin goes out into the ether through the process of mining. But with money today, with dollars and the central banks and all this stuff, the amount of new money that gets created comes from the Federal Reserve. It's chosen how much new money gets created, where with Bitcoin, it's sort of programmatically defined how much new Bitcoin there's going to be each year until you get to 21 million. So,
interesting. Okay.
Right. So Bitcoin, really the simplest way to think about it is just a digital money that has a fixed money supply. And then from there, you can really get into some other sort of wild and crazy things. Alika, do you want to add to that?
No, that was that was great actually. Yeah.
So that's interesting. It starts off at a fixed $21 million in Bitcoin itself.
Well, when Bitcoin launched in 2009, there were 0 Bitcoin.
Okay.
Bitcoin was launched by an anonymous creator under the name Satoshi Nakamoto. And it's incredible that now in 2021, with all the technology that we have, and with Satoshi's rumored Bitcoin making him one of the richest people in the world, that we're still not able to uncover the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto. We really don't know who he is.
Maybe it is you.
Right.
No.
So Bitcoin started at 0 in 2009, and every 10 minutes, a certain amount of Bitcoin is mined. It's found. You can kind of think of it like mining gold.
Yeah.
So the Bitcoin supply grows every 10 minutes, and every 4 years.
Oh, it's fast.
Right. It grows by a small amount every 10 minutes. And every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that is mined every 10 minutes cuts in half. And it keeps cutting in half every 4 years until eventually it is zero and you reach 21 million Bitcoin. So,
Interesting.
right, and that could be a little confusing, but
Yeah.
you know, it just it means that there is no one that can decide to mine more Bitcoin than is possible.
Right.
It is just the rules were set in stone at the beginning, and everyone has to follow them.
So why do you think it was created in the first place? Because I mean, you know, with currencies these days, especially you have yen, you have U.S. dollars, you have pesos, but then now you have Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies in the mix. I mean, why do you think it was already implemented into now being kind of a major player in currencies today?
You kind of look into it, you know, right around 2009, you know, what you remember what kind of happened around then?
Right. You know.
Yeah, we had the great financial crisis,
Yeah.
right? And pretty much, you know, the U.S. government came in and they did the exact same thing that they're doing right now, right? So they started quantitative easing and also fiscal stimulus to help try and save, you know, to salvage the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, as you know, of course, as you start growing that deficit, you know, the people pretty much down at the bottom, which are of course, you know, the working, pretty much the working class, started to feel a lot more of that strain, right? Because now your inflation's going up, the denominator is all, you know, which is pretty much whatever the money, what your money is based on is kind of going up as well. So your purchasing power is being reduced at the same time. So for the wealthy, of course, it's a little bit easier, right? Because, you know, you have money, you have assets, and these things tend to appreciate in some of those environments. So when Satoshi Nakamoto decided to do that, his basic, you know, thing kind of takes that whole system and flips it around the other way, where it's not a high bar to entry into Bitcoin. So, I mean, if you think about it, Bitcoin was made by, you know, the geeks and nerds, for the geeks and nerds, you know, that pretty much, you know, knew a lot of the computer codes, especially in the I want to say it was the cypherpunks. Yeah,
That's what they were called.
Yeah, at the time. So which basically lowered the bar to entry. So anybody can get in, and you didn't have to be at the top level to be able to, you know, to get into this new realm.
The field.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and to add on to that, you know, when new money gets created by the government or the central bank, it reduces the value of all the money that's already in existence. So if you create new money for some purpose, everyone else's dollars get diluted in a sense. You still might have $10,000 in your bank, but $10,000 doesn't necessarily buy what it used to. And you really do see it, kind of like Alika was saying, in 2008, 2009, but you also saw it with the pandemic in 2020 as well. And an example of how this can really kind of hurt some of the people at the bottom is if you take the COVID stimulus, the $2 trillion stimulus that the government passed, and people got a stimulus check, which did have a number of really good effects, you know, on people's lives and on the economy. But the downside, there's a trade-off, and there's a trend is that there's trade-offs to everything, is that income inequality rose as a result of the stimulus. And the way that that works is that if you are someone who needs to spend that $1,200 check on food or on a rent check, you take that $1,200 and you spend it, and it's gone. But if I take that $1,200 and I invest it in the stock market, suddenly now my money is going to be growing and I'm going to be doing better, and the gap between the poor and the wealthy increases as a result of that new money being increased. So, you know, Satoshi in 2009, at the very least, wanted to create a form of money that could not be diluted, where if you are storing your money in a form of money where there's only going to be a fixed number of them, you can know that you're always going to have that same percent of the overall money supply. Whereas now, you know, in modern times, you can't really save your money in the bank for 40, 50 years because it's going to lose its value over time. The idea, one of the ideas behind Bitcoin is that saving your money in a form of money that has a fixed money supply instead of investing, you can just save your money in something like Bitcoin. And even after we both said that, I'm just thinking, boy, I'm not sure that I explained that as easily as I could have. But that's some of why Bitcoin was started to begin with.
Well, if you think about it, yeah, if you got one Bitcoin, the value changes based on a number of different things, right? The market, what could happen, like the foresee market crash that's going to happen supposedly, I don't know, this year. Some people have been predicting that, right? But then you'll have maybe cryptocurrency, your Bitcoin, the value of it may survive that whole market crash, right?
I wouldn't say necessarily like there's a lot of stuff that goes around, whether how the markets kind of perform or anything like that. But I guess kind of going back to what Sean mentioned earlier is like, so the unique thing about it is that it's that fixed supply, it's that scarcity. So you think of like gold, for example, right? Gold has kind of kept its value because there's only so much of it that can be pulled out of the earth, like every year or so. I think it's almost like 2% or something like that of the gold. Yeah, can be mined. So same thing with Bitcoin. It's it's a fixed supply, and as it gets closer and closer, I want to say about 2040 is when the last coin should be mined. But then after that, that's it. It's gone. It's gone. I mean, I won't say necessarily it's gone, but that's it. There's not going to be any more of it. And if you think about it, the more people that start to adopt into the the crypto narrative, or even just into buying Bitcoin in general, or even using it as some form of currency, then the value that it holds kind of just will go up.
Right.
And one more point that might help a little bit make things clearer. I've spent a lot of time reading about and learning about the history of money and how money developed from where it is to where we are today. And if you look at the history of money, the clear trend is that humanity has always moved from forms of money that were less scarce towards scarcer monies throughout history. So, money started off being things like shells and beads, and then gradually we moved to things like copper coins, and eventually we started going towards silver and gold, and we kept naturally progressing towards more scarce materials. And the reason that people naturally gravitate towards scarcer forms of money is because specifically they allow you to save money into the future. So if you have a form of money that cannot hold its value at all, it can only last 1 week before it's worthless, you go to work for 8 hours, and then you finish working, you get paid, and you know that you have to go spend that money right away because in 1 week it's going to be worthless. So you rush out and you buy all this stuff. But if you have a form of money that will be able to hold its value, you can sort of plan for the future better. You don't have to spend all your money on day one. You can buy what you need, and then you know that when a week comes, you have some money to buy food for that week or something. So the more scarce a form of money is, the more it allows the ability to hold its wealth into the future. And up until around 50 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, if you want to talk about the demonetization of gold a little bit more, but we've naturally progressed from 10,000 BC when money first started towards gold being the money of choice because specifically it holds value best over time. But the problem with gold is that it is heavy, you can't send it easily, and in a global internet connected world, you simply just can't use gold. It just doesn't work for a globalized economy that we're in today. And really that difficulty in transporting gold and using gold, as well as the fact that governments cannot manipulate the money supply as easily if they're tied to an amount of gold, has sort of led us to where we are today, where now we all accept that paper money is the money that we use. It's been that way for about 50 years. But with something like Bitcoin, now you have a form of money that is even more scarce than gold. There is an exact fixed 21 million cap, yet it's so portable that I can send money to someone in, Japan or Russia, and it will get to them in 10 minutes. So you sort of combine the scarcity of gold with a form of money that's even more portable than the dollar, because, if you try to send $500 to Russia right now or Iran, good luck. And
the government's going to show up at your house.
Right. They're going to show up at your house. So you get something that the more you look into it, the more most people find really fascinating. And there's a reason why there's very few people who get into Bitcoin that later decide, actually, this isn't interesting anymore. I'm going to stop now. It's really that once people get in, they're in, and they're not going anywhere. And then, other cryptocurrencies are trying to do things that are different than being money. And that's where the whole crypto scene is now, that we haven't talked too much about. We talked mostly about Bitcoin so far, but why don't you, Alika, talk a little bit about what maybe other cryptocurrencies are trying to do?
So, I mean, you kind of mentioned like Ethereum, and then there's a few. So if you think about like Bitcoin was the purpose of, they all kind of serve different purposes. So Bitcoin was basically designed to replace, fiat money. So like your dollar, your yen, whatever, your renminbi, whatever you have. Ethereum is a little bit different. It took that, and then it also built an ecosystem on top of itself. So if you think about like your app store, right? So you can go inside your app store, you can download all these little different apps, and they do different things to help you, be more productive, keep track of your schedule, or help you work out and everything like that. And basically, that's kind of what Ethereum is. Ethereum kind of started. And on top of that, you also have you have decentralized financial apps on top of there. So almost in the sense like crypto banks, if you will, live on top of Ethereum. NFTs, a lot of NFTs, actually the most popular NFT site, I want to say in the world, OpenSea, is actually on top of Ethereum as well. So yeah, so and I can just like rattle off a whole bunch, because there's, I don't know, I mean, I really didn't do like a full count of how many cryptocurrencies out there, but they're all out there, each trying to with their own specific type of purpose. So yeah.
Right. There's more than 1,000 of them, for sure. And one thing that we didn't really highlight about Bitcoin that's then related to all the other crypto stuff is the key point that Bitcoin is decentralized, which means that there is no entity, there's no person, group of people, country, or government that's in charge of Bitcoin. There's no one in charge of Bitcoin at all, and as a result, there's no one single point where Bitcoin can fail. Anyone on their home laptop can run the Bitcoin software that helps keep the Bitcoin network up and healthy. There's tens of thousands of computers that are running Bitcoin around the world, and that sort of decentralization makes the network essentially unstoppable in the sense that it will always keep running. Every 10 minutes, a new Bitcoin block will be done. And again, the key feature is that the rules were set at the start of the Bitcoin protocol, and the rules are the same for everybody. So, we know now in the dollar that if you have more money, you have more power than people who have less money. The rules are not the same for the people who have more dollars. They can manipulate the laws, they can do whatever, they can get ahead because they have more money. But in Bitcoin, the least powerful person in the world is just as powerful as the largest Bitcoin holder there is. That person has no more power over Bitcoin than the smallest person in the world does. And then when you get these other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, as Alika was saying, they're trying to do some of the same things like Bitcoin, like be a form of money, but they're also trying to be sort of a base layer where other developers or companies can sort of build these decentralized projects on top of the base layer, on top of this platform. So you are starting to see things like these decentralized finance applications where, you can almost like banks, almost like decentralized banks, where you can store your money in this decentralized protocol, meaning it's just a whole bunch of computer code, but and you can earn interest on it like you do in a bank, or you can take out a loan the way you can do at a bank. But unlike a bank, you can't get denied because of your credit score. You can't get denied because you're secretly being profiled or something like that. Some conscious bias. You've been declined. We're starting to see these decentralized applications where, again, the rules are supposed to be the same for everybody. So you can think there isn't one yet, but imagine a Facebook where you don't have two different sides fighting about what should be censored or what shouldn't be censored on Facebook. Facebook has too much power. They're collecting all this data from people. When you have cryptocurrency, you can make it so that really the users are almost the owners of the protocol, and you kind of, in a way, can be building a new internet where the people who hold the tokens are the actual owners of these interesting kind of things, and can see the rewards from them directly.
Like a free market.
Yes, very much.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Like a free market, but Bitcoin is the freest market out there, where the price is absolutely like pure supply and demand is what is driving the price of Bitcoin. So crypto is a free market because it is global. Anyone in the entire world can access it. It's not like the stock market where you might have to be a registered U.S. citizen and put up your social security number or something. Someone in Nigeria is influencing the crypto market the same way that we are. But with the idea of decentralized ownership, it can really be like if you imagine a decentralized Facebook. A portion of the profits can be going to anyone who's holding that cryptocurrency or something. And the cryptocurrency holders can vote, for example, to see what kind of upgrades might be made to the system or something like that. It's really sort of this idea of joint ownership in a way.
Between the users.
Right,
Yes.
in a digital way that has never been done before.
Yeah, and that's a big point as well, because there's no real, let's say, big brother kind of governing the currency space for cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Right.
And that's a big point for people that are wanting to get in, because they might look at their dollar and they're going to be like, man, big brother controls the value of my dollar versus Bitcoin, which is the scarcity, like you were saying. It's already this is my Bitcoin. I have the same purchasing power as someone who has a lot more.
Right, and I don't know if you saw, but over the last 2 years when we've been fighting the pandemic, 40% of all U.S. dollars that have ever been created have been created in the last 2 years. We've essentially, 1.5 times the money supply right now. And that kind of action has consequences, and they might not be felt immediately, but it's something where if you're someone who there's a reason to potentially want to hedge just in case it doesn't work out. And I really feel for
Not financial advice.
yes, not financial advice.
Not financial advice.
And you know what? The problem, one of the big problems with cryptocurrency is we obviously are bullish and support the industry, and there's a lot of really amazing stuff, truly genuinely amazing stuff happening in crypto, but boy are there a lot of scams. There's a lot of scams, and there are many more that, if they're not outright scams, they are never going to accomplish the things that they're promising. And you see a lot of these coins and these communities that are talking as if they're going to change the world, but if you really understand how some of this stuff works, then you can tell that there's really nothing under the hood there. And so there really is reason to be cautious if you're entering the space, because there are far more bad cryptocurrency projects than there are good ones out there. And that's part of what makes it so difficult for newcomers to enter the space.
All right, so I'm going to crack open another beer. But before I do that, how does someone get into cryptocurrency? How does someone get into Bitcoin? Let's start off with like the whole process of them wanting to get into it, and then kind of maybe something more advanced,
Okay.
what they can do with it.
Can I start, Alika?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. For a lot of people, conversations like this might start getting them to wonder, okay, Bitcoin is money. What is money? How does it work? And, what does Bitcoin really mean, and how does it really work? And so my book, The Story of Money, was written for people sort of asking this question for the first time. What is money? How does it work? And how does it affect us in more ways than we realize? So the first part of the book is what is money and what is the history of money. I write about the entire history of money from, before there was money up until where we are now. And then once you have an understanding of what money is and how it's evolved, I spend the next third of the book talking about modern money and how money affects us today in more ways than we realize. And that goes with the rising cost of college tuition and income inequality, and the cost of healthcare and things like that. That really all does boil down to the money when you get to it. And then I talk about Bitcoin and how money's going to evolve in the future. So, I think my book is a good resource for it, but there's a number of other good resources as well. If you're on the islands, if you're in Hawaii, we have the Honolulu Crypto Meetup group every 2 weeks on Zoom. You can go on meetup.com and search Crypto Meetup Group, and you should see us there. And we meet every 2 weeks on Zoom, and it is a safe space for newcomers to come in and ask whatever questions they want to ask, and at the same time listen to other people who are already knowledgeable about the space, and they can learn a lot. There's a bunch of good Bitcoin books out there and podcasts and maybe YouTubers. Alika, why don't you continue?
So it's just like Sean was saying, yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess the first part, is definitely do your research first, and then kind of figure out where you want to go with it. If you're ready to take that leap, normally what you would do is you would go to an exchange and you would end up purchasing a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, AVAX, all that other type of stuff. However, here in Hawaii, we're a little unique in that sense. Because the way Hawaii has regulated some of our cryptocurrency exchanges in general, they have listed them as money transmitters. So which kind of puts them in the same category as like your Western Union or your MoneyGram. So what they eventually, what that means for them is they have to hold the same amount of assets that as far as their transactions coming through. So if you're sending somebody $100, like for Western Union, right? Somebody on the other end gets that $100, they pull it out, and they're going to utilize it right away. Right. For a crypto exchange, it doesn't necessarily work that way, right? Because if you buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, what do you want to do, right? You want to hold on to it, until wherever the price action will take you. So that means that exchange has to end up holding on to those, $100. But if you think these exchanges are doing hundreds of millions of dollars a day on transactions, so that kind of made it a little bit unfeasible for them. So even like Coinbase, which is probably like one of the biggest exchanges in the U.S., pretty much walked away from the table, said we're not going to do business with Hawaii. On the other end of that, 2019, Department of Financial Institutions started up what's called the Digital Currency Innovation Lab, which is basically a digital sandbox. So they let 15 companies come in and basically operate here in Hawaii. So here in Hawaii, we're limited to these 50. Well, I take that back. There are ways to get around it, but for a lot of local residents, they're those main 15. That is how you're able to get your cryptocurrency, is through those 15. So yeah.
Right. And to add, there are a huge number of crypto companies that can operate in every single state except Hawaii. Our regulation really is a limiting factor for a lot of companies that they're not able to get past. I think it's something like, if a crypto exchange has $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, by Hawaii law, they need to have $1 billion worth of cash in the bank. It doesn't matter that they can convert their $1 billion worth of Bitcoin to cash in a second. If they're holding $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, they need to also have $1 billion worth of cash. And so that's not how it works. And that's not how other states require it either. So it really has been limiting. And so another good place to learn about Hawaii-specific crypto stuff is howtocryptohawaii.com, which Alika may have mentioned earlier. I'm not positive whether that was before we started, but howtocryptohawaii.com right, is a great introductory resource that has a lot of educational information about Bitcoin, crypto, the whole crypto space, where you can get it in Hawaii, the state of the local regulations, and other helpful info. And that was started by our friend Dustin.
Okay. So, just to build off of that, I know this is not a question I asked when I emailed you guys, but how do you distinguish like a scam? Maybe let's just say people that are creating their own cryptocurrency, but then, newer players, but maybe they're promising something that's not really good. So what's some maybe some things that people can look out for?
So it just depends. So you have to you can go to their site, and then they have either a roadmap or a white paper, which basically kind of lays out their whole where they're going or what they intend to do with it. The ones that I would avoid is basically where there's a lot of hype around it. There's a few out there. I'm not going to say which ones.
You can say it off the
air. But I'll put it this way. If some very famous person says, go out and buy this, and all of a sudden the price just skyrockets, that you might want to kind of stay away from that. Because, I mean, if that's just kind of, a lot of those currencies are kind of subject just to that, that fervor, right? Everybody just go out and buy this right now. So yeah, the price comes up. And of course, when nothing really, materializes out of that, what do they normally do? They get out, and pretty much everybody kind of loses money.
Everybody gets screwed.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And it really is hard in crypto because there are a lot of, yes, you can do the research that Alika was talking about, but there are a lot of really good looking website. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's usually not quite a full scam, where it's like an outright scam, but it's not what it's promoted to be and not what its followers say that it is. And there's really popular projects out there that are really nothing more than hype. And I won't say any of them. If you come to the Meetup group and you want to know whether you should buy a coin, I might yell at you, if you, I might go into one of my rants if you mention one that I think is overhyped, but
it's the truth.
It's really hard. It's really hard for newcomers, and I don't really know how some people should approach this. Really, I mean, I would recommend mostly trying to just start with Bitcoin and Ethereum and trying to take a couple months to get into that and really try to understand how they work. But we have a lot of people in the Meetup group that jumped straight into the Metaverse, and in NFTs and with gaming, and that's not necessarily bad, but it just is a really deep pool to swim in. And I've even noticed myself now where a year ago I knew I would consider myself a relative expert about all areas of cryptocurrency. Now crypto has gotten so big that there are areas where even I, cannot take the time to understand everything. And, gaming coins, for example, I don't have the capacity right now to really understand or tell you what's good, what's not. And so if I'm having trouble with some of it when I've been here for 4 to 5 years and, started this Meetup group and wrote a book about it, then it's really tough for newcomers. And so good luck.
It just shows
but buy some coins.
Yeah, the evolution of cryptocurrency too. Yeah. It just shows how much it's changed over the the span?
I want to say over a year.
Over a year.
I think like when we first joined we were first in the Meetup group. We were just kind of curious, if Bitcoin was even going to cross that 30,000 mark, right? Mm-hmm. And then now it's like you got NFTs, you got decentralized finance, you got all these different things inside there. But you can also see the potential inside of that space. So yeah.
I think a lot of that is because of the pandemic too, just because of everybody's been at home, so they kind of have the time to do some research themselves.
Right. I think that's true, and it actually reminds me of, we talked about how all these new dollars have been printed over the last year, and what you're seeing is people may not necessarily be conscious of the fact that their dollars are losing value, but their actions actually suggest that they sort of understand it. And what I mean is, yes, crypto has hit new highs in the last year, but it's not just crypto. People are investing in everything. Robinhood is more popular than ever. Housing prices are at an all-time high. My friend trades Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and Yu-Gi-Oh cards are at an all-time high. So what's really happening is that people seem to recognize the fact that if they're not investing, then they're missing out. And what that really is the devaluation of the dollar. Dollars not being what they're used to, buying what they used to, but it's sort of resulted in this almost everything bubble where everything is at all-time highs because everyone has the sense that they need to just invest as much as they can. And so I do think the pandemic has played a role in this considerably.
So, kind of going off track a little bit, there was a big thing about GameStop stock last year, right? Why do you think GameStop stock or even AMC kind of had this surge last year in their stock value?
So the GameStop actually arose from a Reddit post. So there is a Reddit group called Wall Street Bets. And basically what they had figured out is that these major hedge funds were coming in and then they were shorting, which is basically taking it's almost like a bet. Well, taking money out and basically saying that this stock is going to go down. So as the stock goes down, the hedge fund makes more and more money. And the lower it goes, of course, the more money they make. But they figured this out. So what they were able to do, and this is kind of like, it's amazing to think this is the actual power, a community has, right? So they blasted it out on Reddit, and everybody went in and they bought up GameStop so much to the point that the price of the stock started to skyrocket, and all these hedge funds now are on the opposite end of that. And when it came to, basically it's called a margin call when they come out and it says, okay, you didn't sell it. You shorted it, which we gave it to you at this price, but now it's at this much. You have to pay up this premium. And basically, they actually had to pretty much, go to other hedge funds to help, basically cover their short. So. And
it's a perfect example of the crypto ethos too, because one, it was really cool that this group on Reddit found out about the GameStop stock and were able to legitimately move the price
hold
much. Hold the line that it really did.
They moved the line.
Right, that it really
they
did
moved the line.
not harm, but they got back at these Wall Street bigwigs that were betting that the stock was going to go down. But then certain stock trading platforms like Robinhood, I believe TD, and a few others, at one point actually halted the stock, so you could not buy GameStop stock anymore. You could only sell it. They made it so you couldn't buy it, but you could only sell it. Right, and that really pissed a lot of people off because why are they changing the rules, when the Wall Street funders are finally the ones losing, and the little guy is really for the first time, taking advantage in something like that. And so you did sort of see a movement, or a lot of the people who were involved in the GameStop thing start to understand crypto, where, again, the rules are supposed to be the same for everyone. And so, it can't be manipulated that now, suddenly you can't buy GameStop stock anymore. That really was an unfair move against the little guy. And that's sort of representative of, the entire system in a way.
The whole Big Brother thing, how
Right.
maybe the Wall Street, the Big Brother, is controlling the market in a way. And then people, now that they're losing, they have a way of controlling it again. You know what I mean? But
Exactly.
like you were saying with Bitcoin, because it's a free market, sort of a free market, everybody kind of has their own right into it. And it's community-based, user-based.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
Right. With Bitcoin, there has never been anything in history where the little guy has gotten to front run the big guy, like what is happening with Bitcoin, where up until the last year or two, really, there were millions, tens of millions of regular, everyday people that owned Bitcoin before a single Wall Street company owned Bitcoin or a single public stock, or even today, there's one government, El Salvador, that has made Bitcoin a legal tender, a legal
really
currency.
interesting.
Right, yes. Bitcoin is on par with the dollar as a co-currency of El Salvador. They've been doing that for the last year or so.
Interesting.
And really, it's the first time in human history that the little guys have gotten to front-run the big guys in this way to such a degree. And you still can front-run the big guys because, as it stands today, there's a handful of companies in the S&P 500 that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. There's one country that we know about, El Salvador, although probably Iran and Russia are probably holding Bitcoin that they're not telling us about. But, the masses have not really arrived yet on that sort of big fish level. And it's really a bottom-up thing in a really special and cool way.
So let's switch topics a little bit. Let's talk
Yes.
about NFTs because we've thrown NFTs, that term, around quite a bit in this conversation. But I mean, people probably wondering what are NFTs and how come it's become so popular maybe in the past couple of years. This whole term.
Let me do how what they are, and then you talk about them more.
All right.
Okay. The idea that something can be digital and scarce is something that had never really existed before Bitcoin, right? If I have a PDF file and I send it to you via email, now we both have a PDF file. There's two copies of that file. You could never really have something that was digital and scarce. Maybe companies would try and put some sort of DRM on something, but that's not really inherently scarce. Bitcoin was, what Satoshi Nakamoto did was find a way to make a digital good scarce so that there's never been and there never will be a counterfeit Bitcoin. You can't forge Bitcoin or anything like that. And so an NFT kind of takes that to another level where you sort of have decentralized scarcity in the form of like an art project. You can have, you can verify that if you own this picture on the internet that you are actually the only one that can own it. So,
The scarcity part.
the scarcity part, this digital scarcity part is where the NFTs come from. And, money is fungible. NFT stands for non-fungible token. Money is fungible, which means if I give you $1, it doesn't matter whether I give you this dollar or this dollar, right? Each dollar is kind of the same. But most things in our life are not fungible. If I give you the keys to my car, it won't fit in your car or anything. It's sort of unique. So in NFT means that it is unique to itself. It is not one of a piece, and that it is still provably digitally scarce through blockchain. That has not existed before, and they have been absolutely hype for the last year or so.
Yeah. So so again, they have gained a lot of popularity. I'd say more along that line as far as like digital scarcity. I think the first ones that actually kind of like made that, that statement of, okay, this is actually, a market that, where people can actually, artists can actually make money is, have you ever heard of the artist Beeple?
No.
So
I've not.
yeah, so he designed these different pieces, and they were minted as non-fungible tokens, and they were auctioned off at Christie's, and he ended up making $69 million off of that auction.
Awesome.
So, and kind of after that, you started seeing a whole bunch of different projects start to pop up. Some of them that have been around for a while, that actually were there since the beginning, like CryptoPunks, CryptoKitties. Those prices started to skyrocket because everybody started to pile in. Have you ever heard of Bored Ape Yacht Club?
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
one.
so Bored Ape Yacht Club. So, and their price kind of started after. They were already kind of up and coming, but then you had celebrities start buying a lot of that, and of course that drove the price of those, like pretty sky high. I think Eminem just purchased one for I think like $450,000.
Damn.
So,
right,
yeah.
the ape kind of looks like Eminem.
Yeah. So I guess but the other part to the NFTs is that the way NFTs work is there's a smart it's called a smart contract that's actually built into them, and basically the smart contract executes on a certain set of rules. So if this happens, then this happens. So NFTs, as far as art, is actually great for artists, because now I can normally if you sell a painting, right, it just goes to one owner, and if that owner buys it from you, you make it say you sell it for $100, you make $100, right? If that owner goes and turns it around and sells it for $200, now he's actually made his investment back, and so on and so forth. But the artist never really receives anything except for credit after that, right? So the way NFTs work is actually built in, where the artist can continually receive the benefit, or the I want to say like a percentage of the next sale. So as his art appreciates, pretty much he's also making money off of that as well. So as if his art kind of gets sold more and more.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, it is a win-win. Yeah. So I think that's kind of one of the other aspects to it, and why people tend to get into the NFT space. And even so is like either making NFTs, or a lot of times nowadays people are flipping NFTs. So they'll buy an NFT for X amount of money, and then just turn around and sell it for a higher profit.
It's kind of like a royalty in a way.
Yes.
That's exactly it.
It is, yeah.
Right, it's a royalty where every time it's sold, you get that royalty, right? If I sell it to you, I did the art, I sell it to you, I get,
Percentage.
Yes. But then you sell it to Alika, and I still get a percentage of that sale too. So it is cool. Like with cryptocurrencies, now there's lots of NFTs that are not going to make you any money. Where lots of people are putting these art projects on there, and then they're not going to sell for higher, and people are buying them. And unlike with a cryptocurrency, if I buy crypto and the price goes down and I want to sell it, I can sell it for a loss. If I buy an NFT and nobody wants it, then I'm stuck with it. Just like I'm stuck with my barn owl that I own,
Right,
that nobody wants.
It's like inventory in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but still, this idea of digital art is definitely cool, and it's definitely a real application for things like art. And NFTs have other purposes that have just barely started to be explored, that mostly haven't even been explored yet. So, an NFT could sort of be like your identity card for membership in an organization or whatever, where
The shot glasses. Yeah.
right, exactly, where, if you held a meeting or whatever, and the only people that could attend were people that had these shot glasses, they could have these shot glasses as an image on their phone that only you gave out to verify that they're actually a part of this club or something like that. And
the scarcity of it.
right,
Yes.
NFTs are often controlled. Someone makes the art, someone does it, but there's still that aspect where there can only be one owner. And you can see it potentially with things like creator coins, where maybe for example, Ninja on Twitch launches a Ninja NFT where there's going to be 5,000 members of his Twitch Club or something. He's streaming games on Twitch. He sells 5,000 of these memberships to his Prime Twitch Club. And as a result, anyone who is part of the Ninja Club or whatever, 1% of his Twitch donations get shared among the members of his club or something like that, where you can sort of have these creators build some sort of communities where people can actually have ownership of it and actually maybe receive some sort of benefit from it. But a lot of that has not been built out in practice yet. There are not creators doing these kind of things yet. It's really just the very first stage of the NFT thing is there, and it's another area where I am not a good judge of what makes a good NFT, and I have mostly not been buying NFTs because I cannot tell what makes a good NFT from a bad NFT. You it's about community, they say.
Yeah.
You want an NFT where there's a real community behind it, that maybe the NFT has some purpose, but it's not so easy if you're just casually paying attention. And the people that do this kind of thing for a living are usually able to they're going to win over the newcomer who just wants to buy an NFT and flip it for a lot of money. But people are really interested in NFTs. It's a topic that comes up in the Meetup group a lot. People are really interested by NFTs.
Do you think it started because of maybe COVID happening, and then the idea of NFT? Because I think prior to COVID, it wasn't really a big idea.
No, it wasn't.
Back in like 2019. So it kind of just started maybe in the past couple of years. So do you think maybe COVID kind of pushed that idea along? Or
I think COVID definitely had something to do with it, right? Because, I mean, if you think about it, people weren't going, after COVID. I mean, during COVID, people weren't going, to work. They're teleworking, right? So I mean,
myself.
Yeah. So I mean, so you've got that, that now you've got a little bit more, time on your hands, and I'm pretty sure some of these people are, could have done the research and also come up with this idea and then pursued it, right? Because you're not always, you don't always have to be going into the office, kind of expending your time over there.
Right.
You can control what you're doing, and then you can also, kind of follow whatever other, idea you might actually have. So, I mean, it could be. Honestly, I'm not too sure where like the idea of NFTs originated from.
Right. I hadn't really thought about that either, but I do think there's something to the idea of people being more comfortable having a digital identity with the pandemic, when everyone was remote, and that, if you have a certain NFT as your profile picture, you are more identifiable than if you have, your dumb face on your Twitter picture or something, So
That's a good point.
I do think we've become more comfortable being digital as a result of the pandemic, and the people are using NFTs for sort of a form of digital identity, digital profile picture kind of stuff. So I do think that makes a lot of sense.
If you go on Twitter, you can see that, like, people, like, actually that's their profile is their NFT.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in our Discord
Yep.
group for the Meetup group, we've got our
Pretty much
NFTs
everybody's got
as
an
our
NFT.
picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours aren't worth very much, but
Yeah.
still.
Do you guys have some ideas for, like, maybe if you guys were to get into the NFT space more, and then like different designs, different things, then you can build a community off of, and then.
There are some local artists that you've gotten.
Yeah, so actually, there's a few here, like, based out of Hawaii. Actually, I think you're kind of mentioning, so Project 808. Project 808. Yeah, is actually, I think one of the gentlemen you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one of their projects.
Coach D.
Yeah.
Coach Darren.
If you remember Farmers Market Hawaii.
Yes.
Yes. So they actually came out with their own NFT called the Angry Natives and that's on
Okay,
OpenSea.
I've seen that.
Yeah. There's another one called Aloha NFTs, and then they have other ones. And actually, I think they're about to release like some NFTs made by some pretty well-known local artists, and I think the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation also did an NFT auction with Jasper Wong, from Powwow, and Punky Aloha, and then Wooden Wave also.
Yeah.
So that was more of a fundraiser, but they did it. They did NFTs also. So I mean, there's a lot of momentum going into that space. So yeah, as far as ours, I think we're more comfortable kind of like being on the outside and kind of watching how things develop, and then maybe it's like I think we'll dip our feet into it. Sean and I've kind of like bought a few NFTs here and there, but just to say, I'm gonna say just to say, but just to see what it's all about. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I've had the idea that it would be fun to make NFTs for everyone who's come to the Meetup group a couple times, get their own picture or something, but it doesn't really work because, one, that's a lot of effort. I am not an artist. I don't know how I would design an NFT, although I did learn how to actually mint them. And secondly, it wouldn't earn any money. It would just be something that I'd want to give to the people of the Meetup group to be their own fun little thing. So there's no plan in the works there. No, never mind. I'm like, can the Meetup group find a way to do something? But
I'm pretty sure they could. We just have to. I mean,
you got to plan it out.
You can plan it out, but I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the cryptocurrencies, the NFTs, they're all based around communities. Yeah. So if you can get a very strong community behind you, I mean, you've got something.
This could be the idea for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just the start right
I mean,
here.
if you wanted, you could start your own like Kampai Sugai, type of NFT, and then it's
I
like
thought about it.
Yeah, exactly. And all your followers, and basically that token or that NFT that you have is basically, you can, put it up to, personalize it. That way they have, some form of connection to you, to the group itself too, right? And then it's like, you can always put it up for a vote. All right, hey, I want you guys are in my community. Who do you want me to interview next? And then they can kind of come up with
that.
Yeah.
Yes, we look forward to our guests on the pod NFT, commemorative NFT, coming up.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? So speaking of podcasts, so I had this idea back in 2020, actually, beginning 2020, because I wanted to do a podcast like networking group. So, doing an NFT for that kind of could build off of that. But because I know a lot of other podcasters, and it's weird for Hawaii, talking about scarcity, right? There's a lot of podcasters, but they don't know each other, right? And for myself, I'm able to just connect everybody together and say, hey, they do this podcast, they do this podcast. I can name some of them now, but if I drink a little bit more, maybe I'm gonna forget their name completely. But I can think of them now, and they just don't know each other.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in a way, podcasts could be a community-based thing, kind of like NFTs.
No, it can, and there is a way you can do something like that. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not sure the way that it earns you money per se, but it does create the community.
Yeah.
For you as a podcaster, though, there would be a way to do something sort of akin to like a Patreon or whatever, where say, everyone who owns the NFT is giving you some sort of money. They're buying your NFT for whatever price you set, and you say back as a result, anyone who gets an NFT, 5% of the show's sponsor revenue will be distributed among NFT holders or something. And as a result, you sort of have this creator community economy thing.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
Yes.
Right there.
Yeah.
Right. It can be. It's cool. It's cool, and it hasn't really been explored yet. But that's the way that an NFT can be something more than just a picture of an ape, which I was looking at today, and they're going for $250,000 for those pictures of apes. Yeah.
All right. So going back to cryptocurrency, let's just talk about the future, right? Let's just say maybe like 5 or 10 years from now. Where do you see the space for cryptocurrency kind of going in maybe these next 5 or 10 years?
I guess the easy answer is I don't know.
But up.
But it's going somewhere. I think a lot of if you get with a lot of the people in that have been in the crypto space for a while, they'll tell you this is where everything is going to head up. We don't know the end picture of it all, but it's all heading this way. So I mean, you think about just like NFTs, and now you're starting to have the Metaverse, right? Like Facebook changed its name to Meta. Facebook is like I think it's a somebody's $1 billion market, but they changed their entire business model just to focus on that the Metaverse. So you can see like how serious they really are about about where everything is heading to. As far as like NFTs, this is just my crazy view of the future, right? So NFTs are pretty much a way to digitize something that's scarce or rare. So you think it's not necessarily like you just think a piece of art. You think of like the title for your car, the deed to your house, anything that you want to put on, that you need to verify that I am the rightful owner of this piece of property. That's what you can do with an NFT. Yeah. And
Great point.
yeah. And then the other thing to it too is like what I'm kind of starting to learn or hear about too is that all these different say your different chains, right? So Bitcoin operates on its own blockchain, Ethereum operates on its own blockchain, all the other there's other cryptocurrencies that operate on all these different blockchains, but eventually they're going to start building these little bridges between each other, so everything that is so you're not necessarily limited to one blockchain. Things can cross over to each other. And I guess one of the big things that everybody's kind of always getting big about is the Metaverse, right? Have you ever kind of seen Ready Player One?
Yes.
Yes. So you think of it in that sense, right? Where now you have this massive video game or different sets of video games that you can jump.
Cross over.
You can cross over, yes. And whatever you get inside this Metaverse, you can take it to this Metaverse. Yeah. So that's where, a lot of this stuff is eventually going to end up. Yeah.
Right. And with the Metaverse stuff, yes, Ready Player One, I'm with you. And I don't know if you've ever been in VR. Like I have an Oculus and VR is really cool, like right now, today. Like it works way better than I think a lot of people realize how crazy VR can be. I was playing this Darth Vader game in VR, and it was really impressive. You really kind of feel like you're in another world. And with crypto in general, what crypto really does, what Bitcoin started is sort of taking out the middleman and putting services and projects and money directly in the hands of people. So, if I hand you a dollar bill, I give you the dollar bill. I own the dollar bill. I gave it to you. If you want to pay me digitally, it doesn't work like that at all. If you send me a Venmo, the payment goes through Venmo, your bank, my bank, and right. Someone else. There's a lot of intermediaries when we do things digitally now. And one of the ideas behind Bitcoin was to make digital payments essentially the same as when I physically hand you a dollar bill. When I own my Bitcoin, there's no intermediary. And when I send it to you, it doesn't go through any intermediary. It is directly peer-to-peer. And crypto as a whole does that same thing by putting users directly in contact with financial applications, with banking applications, and art and users. And it's why some people have referred to crypto as the user-owned internet, where instead of things like Twitter and Google and Amazon and all these giant companies that are the ones providing these services, you sort of have the users owning these protocols and these services themselves, and it's the user-owned internet. And at the same time, even though it's not always like that for most people, but it's much faster and more efficient to utilize crypto networks sometimes than going through things. I mean, certainly the banking system, but even other things as well. And so where it's going, I think, is towards this idea where you can even have regular companies utilizing crypto kind of protocols to be directly in touch with their users in a way that doesn't work the same when you have to go through all these closed doors, board of directors, shareholders making all these sort of decisions. And so where we're going is up. Is up. It is. This is not financial advice, but we are we really believe that we understand what we're talking about here. That we understand the technology that we're talking about, and that this is a step forward that is going to meaningfully, improve productivity, quality of life, progress, and that kind of thing in the days to come. So, I mean, in the next decade, let's just say that I think, if you asked me what's going to have a longer lifespan, Bitcoin or the euro, I would bet pretty big on Bitcoin being the thing that lasts longer than something like the euro. So I think these things are going to be around for a long time. And that we're just starting to scratch the surface. And that sounds pretty cliche now that I've already said it.
That's good.
But, we love to talk about this stuff. And if anything that we've said makes you curious in any way, come to the Meetup group. Go to howtocryptohawaii.com. You can contact us through there as well. And we are happy just to chat, at any time.
Yeah. I guess one more thing to add on to, kind of what we were saying as far as like where, the crypto space is going. So, like we said, it's everything is heading that way, right? And I think the big thing, especially, that we're trying to do with, one, the website, and then two, the Meetup group, and just the rest of our office, our other efforts, but even just coming to talk to people like people like you, and to let your users know that your audience know that. So remember when I mentioned that digital currency innovation lab, right? So that ends this year, June 30th, 2022. So what happens is, so right now there is, I believe there is legislation going in that is supposed to help amend the current money transmitter regulations here in the state. But, of course, we need a lot of people to back it, right? You need your lawmate, we need people to be aware of this, that they're missing out. This thing, crypto is going to keep going, right? Yeah. But we want Hawaii to be on board the bus as it's moving in this direction. And we can't get on board the bus if, everybody's locked out of it, right? So I guess the bigger one for us is, to get with your lawmaker, contact them, go to howtocryptohawaii.com, or you can find us on our Instagram too, at howtocryptohawaii, and, we'll put the measure on top of there. And if you can provide your testimony and why, Hawaii, needs the regulations to be changed, or why they need this amendment to be added in there. So that way, we can get more people, into the, yeah, exactly.
Yep. Right, yeah. Because this is happening whether Hawaii is a part of it or not. Yeah. And like with anything in life, you're never just staying in the same place. You're either moving forward or you're falling behind. And so if we do not act on this and ensure that at the least the companies that can operate now are allowed to continue to operate, I would say that's not enough. We have to do more because most companies are still not operating here. But if we don't at least allow the companies operating here to continue, then there is a very real risk that it is the people here really do, are prevented from making a choice for themselves whether they want to participate or not. Because, if you're still not comfortable with crypto, you still don't really get it, then, you shouldn't do anything that you're not comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But it's important that people that are interested and want to learn more and want to participate are not prevented from doing so. And that's why the legislation, it's really important what's about to go into session here, I believe, later this week. And even that bill is a little problematic, but it is at least a pathway for...
It's a start.
It's a pathway for companies to operate here. So, it's something that we really do care a lot about.
All right. Hey, well, thank you for talking to all of us, giving us this was very informational for me, as well as hopefully for my audience as well. But let's talk about the website. What do you guys do? What do you guys think about like expanding it? Like what's the goal to kind of building the website, or what do you guys plan on doing in the future?
So I guess right now it's we're the big one, of course, is just trying to focus on trying to work. Well, one, it's the educational piece, right? Mm-hmm. So if you get into the crypto space, it just depends on which route you take. You can end up in some type of Telegram or some type of Discord, and mm-hmm. you will be overwhelmed because you got guys kind of shilling out about different type of coins. Hey, you should jump on top of this. Mm-hmm. You're going to see charts on top of there, and if you're not accustomed to a lot of it, it's going to be overwhelming, and a lot of times it turns a lot of people off to the space entirely, right? Because I don't understand it.
Overwhelming.
It is. It's too much. There's too much. I don't want to. I don't want to have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So you lose out on that. Our thing is to try to bring people in, and try to make it, a little bit more, easier to digest. So, we kind of just walked a lot of the steps. Like, Sean's got a great article on, pretty much what he explained here. What is Bitcoin? Mm-hmm. What is a blockchain? What is a wallet? Why do you need a wallet? All those little things. So, you can kind of do a little bit. Yeah. So you can kind of just walk yourself in, and if you want to start to run, we've got, okay, this is the certain exchanges that are allowed to operate here in Hawaii. You can go to these, and if you want to buy, cryptocurrency, you can. But there's the educational piece, and I think the other part, of course, is trying to work with some of the legislators to be able to help bring their awareness onto why it's so important to have something like this here in Hawaii, and why of course our regulations have to be changed to allow this.
Mm-hmm. Right, and with the website and the Meetup group, what I've been thinking about that I haven't quite nailed down yet is how to turn how to build more of a community, an active community. We've got the Meetup group, which is a semi-active community. Mm-hmm. It's not really meshed with the website. We've pointed to the website, and now I've linked to it on our bi-weekly Google Doc that we have for topics. But there's some way to develop community more, build a stronger community. We just started a Discord, but it's not exactly popping yet. That I think hasn't been figured out yet. So there's room to grow there. I have an idea that I haven't shared with Alika and Dustin yet, but for now, I think we want to continue adding good content to the website to at least provide a good space for people to learn more about, where at least they can get some of their questions answered, and then maybe come to the Meetup group too, where we can really get into anything that anyone wants to talk about.
Nitty-gritty stuff.
Whatever anyone wants to talk about. We get lots of people come just ask where can they buy crypto in Hawaii, Simple things is fine. It is a safe space for complete newcomers that don't know anything about crypto, and it's also a safe space for crypto nuts to get really, weird with it sometimes.
Some of the guys, even for us, some of them are just talking like up here. And I'm like,
Right.
wow.
In the
Yeah.
last couple months, some really smart people have been coming to the meetup groups more often.
Yeah.
And so it's been really interesting to see. We've been having some good discussions there. But, you know, I think that idea of what the community element still feels fragmented to a degree where I think there's room for something there that we haven't quite nailed yet.
I think a good point for even like my audience today is the simplicity about, you know, joining a group to understand how they can get started. I think awareness probably is the start of it, because maybe, like you were saying before, people might join a Telegram group or a Discord group. They might just get overwhelmed with things and then they quit really early on. So having something like a discussion, something, you know, the breakdown, or even going to a website and having the breakdown of certain terms, blockchains, NFTs, what is cryptocurrency from the baseline discussion, I think that's helping communities out to understand, especially for Hawaii. Then people from Hawaii will be able to be more encouraged about getting into the space, or even then the community can grow from there.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, because we're definitely not connecting with as many people as we could. I mean, not many people are going on Meetup.com. You know, I'm surprised that the group has even grown to the 160 members that are on there as it is. But you know, Alika has, you know, we're managing. Alika's managing the How to Crypto Hawaii Instagram. You know, trying to connect through there a bit more now. And so maybe finding better avenues to reach out to people, because people want to learn more. People are interested. It's very clear from the discussions we've had that people are at least curious.
Right.
But how to reach the people, you know, is sometimes a challenge.
Well, fellas, thank you again for joining me. Yeah, this was great. This was great for me. Hopefully my audience is picking up a lot from it. It's a lot to take in, but also, I mean, you guys broke it down pretty well. I think a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, okay, now I have a better understanding of it, you know, and hopefully, you know, the group gets bigger. The community for cryptocurrency gets bigger here, especially in Hawaii. I mean, one thing I tell people about Hawaii is a little slower with things versus, you know, the mainland.
Yeah.
Trends, or even clothing lines, or even certain things like, you know, we don't even have a Chick-fil-A here, you know,
But some just got approved.
but some, yeah,
They're coming.
exactly, it's coming. But I mean, you know, Chick-fil-A in the mainland, it's already a bigger thing already. So, and then we don't even have an In-N-Out here. You know what I mean?
Where's the Chipotle?
Yeah, where's the Chipotle?
It would be popular.
Exactly. That's what it was almost past there. But I mean, I don't know what the heck's going on. But the thing is, Hawaii is a little slower with things here. But I think awareness is able to kind of help communities, you know, get them up to speed at least. And so yeah, thank you for coming on the show. And one thing we like to do. That's why we're called Kampai Sugai, because we like to Kampai. We like to do a cheers at the end. So, guys, and people at home, you guys can also use the hashtag NoticeMeKampai and cheers with us. So, guys, this is to cryptocurrency. This is to a successful year that's upcoming. I mean, 2022, it's a brighter year. There's been a lot of confusion in these past 2 years, but I think that, you know, things are going up, like you guys were saying with cryptocurrency. Things are going up, and I think things will be going up for you guys as well. So, cheers. Kampai to you guys.
Kampai.
Kampai.